This is PTV Volt. I am shabahat Ali, and you are watching Fault Lines. From winning Nobel Peace Prize to being alleged for severe war crimes, Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has shot to fame and remained in headlines. By 2018, Ethiopia had sustained remarkable feat, that is 10% year-to-year GDP growth for straight 10 years. During this period of transformational growth, Ethiopia managed to reduce dramatically the number of people living under the line of poverty from 50% to 31%. But economic progress was interrupted by clashes that erupted between Ethiopian forces and northern rebels of Tigray more than a year ago. Ethiopia has 10 loosely connected ethnic regions. Each has some autonomy. Tigray is in north of Ethiopia and also a region that has its own military. The Tigrayan crisis have escalated seriously after the use of brute force by the state forces. There are allegations of use of drones as well. Watch the reports prepared by my team before I bring my first guest to the program.
Africa's fractured giant Ethiopia has been embroiled in a civil war that threatened to tear the country of 115 million people apart. The roots of the conflict lie in Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's drive for a new pan-Ethiopian political party, which raised speculations that the country's federal system was under threat. Leaders in Tigray withdrew to their mountainous heartland in the north, where they continued to control their own regional government and defied government by going ahead with the regional parliamentary elections in September 2020 that had been delayed due to the pandemic. In November 2020, Prime Minister Abiy ordered a military offensive in the restive northern Tigray region and promised that the conflict would be resolved quickly. The fighting in Tigray sparked a full-blown crisis with the potential to pull Africa's second most populous country apart and destabilize the wider Horn of African region. The protracted civil war has left thousands dead, displaced more than 2 million people from their homes, 400,000 are facing famine in Tigray, 9.5 million people need food aid, sending 60,000 refugees into Sudan, and this has given rise to a wave of atrocities. International mediators, including the African Union and the United States, have repeatedly tried to negotiate a ceasefire between the two sides. The silver lining is that rebellious Tigrayan forces fighting the central government are withdrawing from neighboring regions in northern Ethiopia, a step towards a possible ceasefire after 13 months of brutal war.
My first guest in today's program is Mr. Ahmed Zaki. He is a researcher on East Africa, a lecturer in Islamic University of Islamabad, and is a very keen observer of the African affairs. On Skype, I have with me Omar Karim. Omar Karim is a fellow at Royal United Services Institute. It's a famous think tank based in London and will be commenting on today's subject, that is the crisis in the heart of Africa. We are starting from you, Mr. Ahmed Zaki. So tell us about a bit of the background. Ethiopia was an economic tycoon of Africa. The way it was progressing, its examples were shared, within the economic circles of the world. What happened instantly?
As you mentioned in your report, that Ethiopia was growing economically very fast comparatively to the rest of African countries. And the major target of the previous government before Abiy Ahmed came into the power was that they were saying that we are focusing only one enemy, that is poverty. And they were fighting with the poverty. And through that, there was a lot of projects of agricultural project and the production of the industries that improved the life of the Ethiopian. Unfortunately, after the unrest of Ethiopian uprising, Abiy Ahmed came into the power by a large popular protest dominated by the majority of the Ethiopian population. Abiy Ahmed make a lot of changes, political changes, and he takes a bold steps until he win the Nobel Peace Prize. And that makes him a very attractive young energetic leader in East Africa, and it was very hopeful. Unfortunately, when they delayed the election of the regional Tigray region, and due to the COVID-19, the federal government said we cannot hold an election over there. But the provincial government of the Tigray, they rejected and they continue for their plan. And that's where the conflict starts.
But Zaki, I have also learned that there have been a debate within Ethiopia about the integration of Ethiopia into a more strongly integrated unison.
Yeah.
There is some regional autonomy within the states, within the regions that are in the country. Tell us more about this regional autonomy. How does it contribute to this conflict?
Obviously, Ethiopia was being ruled by TBLF, which is the Tigrayan Liberational Party. They were ruling the country for 10 years before Abiy Ahmed came into the power. So they designed the Ethiopia as a federal government based on ethnic groups. And each ethnic group were having a loose, autonomous, semi-autonomous region inside the Federation of the Ethiopia. And that was kind of like reviving the nationalism inside the Ethiopian community. When Abiy Ahmed came, he was kind of linear to the centralized power of the Ethiopia. He didn't eliminate all the power of the provinces, but it was a reflection for those who are feeling insecure inside the Ethiopian community, like a Tigrayan community and Amhara. They were feeling, because they were former leaders of Ethiopia, so they were feeling that if Abiy Ahmed came, who is from Oroman region, and the Oromo is the largest population in Ethiopia. If you go for the federal public, if you go for the general elections, Oromo will obviously
the majority will rule.
Win. And this is the first time the majority came into the power in the history of Ethiopia. They never rule Ethiopia.
Zaki, let me take Omar Karim into the program. Omar, thank you very much for coming to my show. How do you see the crisis going on at the moment in Ethiopia? Do you see it purely because of the demographic reasons as elaborated by my guest Ahmed Zaki?
Yes, I think Mr. Zaki is right. The core problem within this conflict is ethnic contestation, specifically between the Tigris and the Amharas. And currently, actually, we have seen a number of stages in this, if we can say, civil war or civil conflict. First, the government went into the Tigrayan ethnic region and took over Makalla, their capital, and drove them out to the mountains, whatever was left of the Tigrayan resistance. The Tigrayan resistance then responded and gradually took back all of its own semi-autonomous, the Tigrayan area, the state of Tigray, and then they moved further towards the Amhara region as well as the Afar region, which are other ethnic regions. And at one point, they were about 250 kilometers from the capital, Addis Ababa. So the Tigrayan defense forces, which are the military wing of the TPLF, they were well on their way to capture Addis Ababa, and the situation was extremely bleak for President Abiy Ahmed's government, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's government. But then, by aid from Turkey, Iran, UAE, and China, specifically the drone attacks which were conducted against the Tigrayan defense forces, we can say that Abiy Ahmed has managed to turn the tide. And right now they have recovered all of the Amhara region, all of the Afar region, and the Tigrayan forces have themselves left all of their areas beyond areas of presence beyond Tigray. And I'm quite sure that Abiy Ahmed's government will pursue them even within Tigray. The key in all this conflict was, and it has been for 30 or 40 years, that the Tigrayans were very good in terms of you can say mobilized warfare. So they were light infantry, and they very quickly mounted attacks and very quickly retreated. This advantage, they of course were well positioned against a more immobilized enemy like the traditional defense forces, which have tanks or armored units, but they lost this advantage against drones, against drone powers. And now we have seen that swarms of drone attacks have totally devastated the Tigrayan defense forces,
Omar,
and
Omar,
this
I'll
is
have to
the
cut
current
you here.
situation.
You have just pointed out a very important thing. You said that the Tigray forces were attacking on the capital. They were a few miles away, and from there, the Air Force jumped in. You said drones have played a very instrumental role. So tell us whether the Tigray or the faction of Tigray's army are fighting for an absolute control on the entire country, or is it their fight for survival to maintain their regional autonomy?
I think this is a very good question, because initially their motto, or their, you can say, discourse was that we are defending our homeland, and that's also on record that the Ethiopian National Defense Forces, they committed a lot of atrocities when they took over Mekelle and other parts in Tigray. So it was understandable that the reaction was very strong from the Tigrayans. As I was reading, some people have suggested that parents were telling their children that better to die at home. You need to die at front. But once the initiative was with the Tigrayans, and most of the Tigrayan officer corps, especially their generals, they used to be at very high positions in the Ethiopian defense forces before the before President Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed came into power. So then they went on for, I will say that a total capture of all Ethiopia. But this is a bit, again, a bit tricky, because there are some factions within the Oromos, from where, as Ahmed suggested, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed hails from. So they are not happy, and there is a little bit of a guerrilla movement going on within the Oromo areas, called the led by Oromo Liberation Front. And other ethnicities also always had problems with the Ethiopian Federation. So the idea behind these moves by the TPLF was that we will, just as we ousted Mengistu Haile Mariam regime in 1991, the Derg regime, we will again oust this regime of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, who will have no, you can say, legitimacy or no real support within the people. And I think that broadly this was true, like, other than the Amhara, which right now form, you can say, the bedrock of support for Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. The Prime Minister has lost his support in some other regions and some other ethnicities. But due to the drones and Prime Minister's foreign allies, we can say the situation has changed completely.
Thank you, Umar, and I'm going to come back to you with a different dynamic of the same crisis. But let me consult Ahmed Zaki for an international aspect of the same crisis. Ahmed, the Ethiopian regime in the past had not enjoyed very good relationship with neighboring Eritrea. Mm-hmm. And ever since the Prime Minister has come to the stage, he has improved the relationship with Eritrea to a great extent. Mm-hmm. And now the Tigrayan forces are leveling allegations that the Eritrean army is also supporting the current regime, the current administration. How do you see this allegation? What do you know of it?
The federal government of Ethiopia was having a long animosity with the Eritrea. In order to understand the Eritrea and Tigray, they have a border relations from the Eritrean side. And both of them are the same people. Both of them are Tigray from both sides. Ethnicity, they are same.
Okay.
But they are from two different states. As long as they were ruling the country, they keep the animosity of Eritrea into the top priority, so that they can unite it inside Ethiopian divisions. But when the Tigrayan power left the power and Abiy Ahmed came, he changed the scenario. Agreeing with solving the problems of Eritrea, they see it as a threat to the Tigray by themselves. And that is how they perceive it. They perceive it as a threat to their existence, because they keep Eritrea animosity for 30 years. And now Abiy Ahmed came and solved it within 2 months.
But do you believe the Eritrean army is supporting?
Eritrean army, they supported, even though they denied publicly, but it's obvious they supported it. And that shows the international media reports, that shows the international organizations, humanitarian reports are shown that Eritrean armies support federal government. And the reason why they support was that they were already having the previous animosity between the Eritrea and Ethiopia. So Eritrea get a chance now to cooperate with the federal government against the Tigrayan forces. And the Tigrayan forces get that as an opportunity, a backfire to the Abiy Ahmed. When they came back to fight against the federal government, they use it that our former enemy are now killing our people. So the 30 years animosity that have been propagated inside the Ethiopian people, they get sympathy from.
So they're coloring it politically.
They color it.
Omar, there's a very important thing that we are going to discuss now. It is the absence of any talks so far, despite the fact that the crisis is prevailing for over a year now. But Ethiopian government have refused to have any direct talks with the warring side. Another thing is a serious allegation of use of United Nations convoys or United Nations trucks for provision of ammunition to the Tigray side. And on this ground, they have blockaded the entire humanitarian assistance programs that were trying to reach out to the vulnerable population. How do you comment on that?
I think that this is definitely very unfortunate that both sides have completely refused to engage with each other, and with the level of, you can say, hostilities and to some people are calling it genocide at some levels. It's very unlikely that there will be any talks, any engagement between the two sides. First, when the Ethiopian National Army went into the Tigray region, and of course the Eritrean army from the north, they also entered the region. There was massive violence and human rights violations. And then when the Tigray forces went into Amhara region, the Amharas launched human wave attacks, and thousands were killed in those attacks because the Amhara militias were not really well armed. So there is a lot of animosity right now on both sides, which will make it very difficult for both sides to sit together and talk with each other and to reach a political compromise. On the other hand, I think that the reports of UN trucks being used to transfer arms to the Tigrayan militia, I think these reports again are coming from quarters which are mostly aligned with the Ethiopian government. Most of the times, UN aid provisions have not reached Tigray, and I think there is no reason to doubt that there is a massive humanitarian disaster right now emerging in Tigray, just like in Afghanistan. It's because because of the war, the Tigrayan people or the people in the region, they were not able to cultivate their fields and crops. So basically, there is no food right now within the region, and food aid only can come from outside, and all the outside you can say ways leading to the Tigray are right now sort of blocked by the Ethiopian forces.
Omar, there is a communication blockade of Tigray as well. So the only communication coming out, or only stats are coming out, are from the Ethiopian side. How do you see this escalation?
Yeah, absolutely. You're true that the Ethiopian side and the Ethiopian government have imposed a complete communication blockade. Actually, the Tigrayans who are living in Europe or in Western world, they are quite vocal about it, and they have tried their best to to disseminate what's going on within Tigray. But on ground, it's very difficult to access Tigray. And that partially complicates the situation because the lines on the ground are so blurred. nobody right knows who has committed what acts of violence. So it's not from one side. The Ethiopian forces definitely started this, you can say, very much, but in the retaliation, the Tigrayans, there have been reports that they have also conducted such excesses, and we nobody can for sure claim what is true or what is not because of this communication blockade right now. And I think that if international community, specifically not even international community, the regional community, particularly countries in the Gulf and Turkey, if they want, they can force both sides to reach some sort of a compromise. But again, the other question would be what would be Eritrea's position into it, because even when the Ethiopian forces were rooted out, Eritrean forces were one of, you can say, the mainstays of this coalition, because they were relatively better armed and better fighting.
Better organized as well. Let me take a quick take from Ahmed Zaki as well. Ahmed, how do you see this humanitarian crisis? There are 2 million people stuck in this zone. As we were discussing, it's a complete communication blockade. There's no humanitarian supplies reaching from any side. And we do not know what is happening to the people. The communities living abroad, as Omar Kareem identified, underlined, are quite vocal about the atrocities. And all the information coming to us is through the propaganda machines. How do you see that?
It's unfortunate that the humanitarian crisis that we are seeing in the reports are even more worse than the on the ground. And Ethiopia, it was already there was a lot of population would living under the poverty. As you have mentioned in your report, more than 50% of the community are already poor. So when you keep them under that humanitarian crisis, the atrocity you can imagine. The problem increases when communications have been blocked by the federal government, and it's condemnable action. That the international community should have to put a pressure that at least the humanitarian supply should have to reach into the needy people. When you see the other side of a Tigrayan, this is the Tigrayan tactics. They always use, as long as they were ruling the Ethiopia, they use humanitarian crisis as a shield. They did this previously inside the Ethiopia by banning villages under the federal authority and under the federal government authority while they were ruling. So today they are doing the same, and the federal government did not change its tactics. They are doing the same. The humanitarian crisis which is happening in Ethiopia, it's unbearable that you cannot see it in your eyes.
Zaki, one more important thing is that after Libya's fall, after Libya's disintegration, that was a major economic powerhouse within Africa. There is crisis in another country of Africa that was making economic progress by leaps.
Yes.
Is it not very unfortunate that any African country making a good effort or doing good on the economic front, trying to come out of that abject poverty that Africa has been facing historically, meets similar fate every time?
Definitely, there is also another international war which is going on mostly in African territory. That you will see that China is investing a lot in Africa currently, and Western investors or Western interests is seen as a shrinking comparatively. Unfortunately, China is not going to rescue any state politically or militarily as the other Western states are doing. That we have seen in South Sudan. The major investment of the oil was Chinese company, but it was humanitarian crisis. It was going on for the last 10 years consecutively. The civil war was coming again and again and again, but still China secured its own interest. Ethiopia was the second largest investment of Africa from China. Like just they were only one step behind Nigeria. Otherwise, they were investing Ethiopia a lot. Now their investment is under threat. I don't see any effort from Chinese who's helping to Ethiopia to solve their conflict. On the other side, American interest in Ethiopia was lined up with the previous government, Tigrayan government, and that since Abiy Ahmed came, it was seen as that he is diverting all his attention is towards the support of Chinese investment. And this is whenever you see that the growing economy in Africa, and that is behind the Chinese hand, that you will see that that economy is going to be destroyed very soon.
Thank you very much, Ahmed Zaki. Thank you very much, Umar Kareem, for being guest in this segment of program. Ladies and gentlemen, the program continues, but we will take a break and we'll join back after the break. Stay with us. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Turkey's currency has remained under immense pressure recently. During last 10 years, Turkey's lira lost 75% of its value against US dollar, 45% in the last calendar year, and 15% only on last Tuesday. The government had to do some drastic measures to bring lira back on track. And in the course of action, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has taken a decision that is heavily criticized by the economic circles of the world community. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has promised that the government will meet the deficit for the savings that are made in lira if they fall below the rate of interest in the banks. Many international commentators are surprised with this move. This is also coupled with the fact that Turkey has recently been included in the FATF's grey list, for which many commentators have declared it a political decision because Turkey's economy was doing perfectly all right. To comment on these developments, I have with me in today's program Mr. Fahim Sardar, who is a famous and reputable expert of economic affairs. And with me from Turkey, I have Dr. Sharukh. He's a journalist of TRT World. I welcome both of my guests to the program. Fahim Sardar Sahab, you have seen the recent depreciation of value of lira against US dollar. It just broke all the records. Government came up with this very unique strategy and lira came back immensely. How do you see this development as an economic expert?
Firstly, thank you for having me. It's important for government to sort of manage every currency based on the situation. There's no free float on earth, there's no free flying or floating currency because that just doesn't happen. You have to manage it within a band. What we have sitting in Pakistan observed is that the government of Turkey has stepped in to sort of strengthen the lira, and I'm sure our friend Dr. Sharukh can sort of guide us as to what happened exactly, but it's very clear that the government of Turkey has basically propped up the currency and built up value very quickly within a couple of days. Now, this is part of the volatile movement of the lira, which needs to be sort of managed more, I would say, carefully, because whenever volatility comes into a financial movement, it's important to sort of slow things down, just to make things a little more manageable. The government of Turkey has done exactly what the government should be doing.
Apart from the currency crisis as well, the recent inclusion of Turkey in FATF has raised the flag for many, and the country that has been doing a great job on the economic front has immediately, started catching limelight, and many are saying that this is purely based on political grounds. How do you see that?
FATF is basically, okay, fine, it's of course part of the UN umbrella, But FATF has taking certain decisions which many countries are challenging, Pakistan included. So what we like to see is a little more even-handed treatment because, for example, when it comes to Pakistan, although you didn't ask me about Pakistan, I'll start with Pakistan. We have done things well beyond the average white-listed country, but we're still on the gray list. So that makes us wonder. So that would make Turkey wonder as well why they're on the gray list. The effect of being on the FATF gray list is basically what happens is it reduces your freedom to work as compared to if you had been on the white list. We have the examples of, we have so many examples, one of which is, I'll quote Nigeria, because the moment they sort of got onto the watch list, they started experiencing problems. When they started showing intensity in fixing the problems, they started seeing improvements. We see that same example happening in, say, Turkey. That will be one of the reasons that they would have faced an issue. However, I do believe the heavy debt situation, the low interest rate, and reportedly an unorthodox way of dealing with interest rates may have caused a bit of volatility in the market. You can clearly see that the Turkish government is trying to control it, and you've seen results in 2 days.
Let me include Dr. Seljuk in this conversation. Maybe he can tell us a different perspective. Dr. Seljuk, how do you see this recent development that has happened, and President Erdogan has given a different economic strategy that the entire world believes is not bound to work, but still it has brought Lira out of the crisis straight away. How do you see that, sir?
Indeed, Turkey's current economic policy should be understood through the domestic politics of Turkey, because Turkey is going to election, and opposition parties are pushing government to do early election, and opposition parties are, and indeed we can say the opposition bloc always emphasizing the economic issues in Turkey, and specifically the USD, the increasing of USD. But what happened recently in Turkey, Turkey is under pressure in both. We can say because of the COVID pandemic situation in Turkey, which influenced Turkish economy a lot, and we can say all countries are influenced a lot. But what Turkey did, Turkey is currently focusing on the development. And Turkish development rate is incredibly high if we compare the other countries in the world. I will give you some data. That according to IMF, Turkey is going to grow 9% this year, 9%. And according to OECD, and again, in the second quarter, it will be one of the greatest growth rate in the world as well. What President Erdogan is trying to do, President Erdogan trying to increase the growth rate of Turkey. Because of that, what you should do, you should always finance your companies. Because of that, Turkey wants to decrease the interest rate. Instead of protect the money and other things, they want to decrease the interest rate to make Turkish economy more vivid and more growth rate, and which also influence the people during the election. Because if there is a job, if there is a money, people will support the current government. But if you increase the interest rate, it means that there would be the unemployment. And because of the pandemic situation, unemployment rate, unfortunately, is very high across the world. And secondly, which is also one of the greatest development in the world, there is a competition between West and China during these economic issues and period. And Turkey wants to be the center of production of the Western countries. Geographically and historically, Turkey is one of the closest ally of Western countries. And also, Turkey is also one of the greatest producer country across, we can say, in the Middle East and Central Asia, which are the more geographically close to European countries. That's why Turkey wants to support the companies to produce. And also, secondly, during this COVID period, commodity price increased if we compare the currency rate. That's why Turkey wants to increase the commodity growth rate and this kind of policies. This is the Turkish politics right now during the economy. And what
No,
Turkey did when the USD increased incredibly, and we can say the doubleized within 1 month, because last month it was 8.559 Turkish lira, and last week it reached around 18 Turkish lira, which means within 1 month doubleized. Then what when Erdogan give a guarantee to people to protect their value of money against USD, and people turn to use the Turkish lira. That's why USD decreased around 11 Turkish lira right now from 18
but
Turkish
but
lira.
Dr. Seljuk, I completely agree with the statistics and the numbers that you have presented. There's no doubt that the economy has been growing with a massive pace of 9% before the COVID hit the entire world. But don't you think that the increasing gap between Turkey and United States, Turkey and the European Union, Turkey and the Middle Eastern countries have actually played a more active role in shaping up the current economic crisis for Turkey?
Yes, you're right. And Turkey and Western relation is going a bit problematic during this Middle Eastern politics. But what Turkey did recently, Turkey tried to make better relation with European countries, even with the GCC countries. You know that last week, Turkey and United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia went more stable relations, and also Turkey started the we can say the peace process with Armenia, and the direct flights started. So Turkey wants to give a green light to the foreign countries, international area, to say that we want to stable international relations, we want to solve the Middle Eastern politics, and also we want to more close with the European countries while we experience lots of problems. And during that period, Turkey used her advantages. So, what are the advantages of Turkey? One, geography. Second, history, because Turkey is still in the European Union process, and Turkey is also one of the most greatest producer and of European countries. Because if you look at the export rate of Turkey, and Germany, United Kingdom, France are in the top five. So Turkey wants to maintain this relation, and Turkey wants to improve export trade through these economic policies.
You're right to a great extent, but let me take Mr. Fahim Sardar in the same conversation. Fahim Sahab, there have been recently problems between United States and Turkey. United States has not so far finalized the F-16 deal with Turkey. The relationship have also remained marred between Turkey and European Union. Do you believe that these external factors have also had an impact on shaping the current economic crisis for Turkey?
Politics always influences the economy, somewhat may, and the economy and politics are, I think, two sides of the same coin, which just depends how you look at it. So, I mean, you can never ever exclude external politics from what's happening in your country. The situation with Turkey is that Turkey is regionally very active, and it has been very vocal about certain positions which perhaps are not very acceptable to certain countries. At the end of the day, your economy has to be, well, it has to be in line with your political desires. I mean, when you look at Turkey's exports and imports, it's reasonably balanced out, so to speak. But most of their exports are going towards Western countries, and Turkey is quite import. I call it import exposed because there are quite a lot of heavy imports coming into Turkey. That too from the same countries that they're exporting to roundabout. But when it comes to politics, we have to understand that look, you cannot isolate the two, the economy and the political environment. They both hand in hand. If, for example, uh, there had been a more conducive environment for Turkey, even for other countries, then they would not be facing such let's say, such harshness at the FATF platform. Let's be very fair. Right now, what Turkey is doing is it's very clear that they're trying to balance things out. They're trying to balance out the political environment internally and externally because, as Dr. Seljuk very aptly said, that elections are coming up inside Turkey very soon. That's one thing, but then you've got the external political front as well, which is is quite fluid on various fronts, and Turkey is
Doc,
sort of the center of it. So
I
Turkey's
agree with
trying to
you.
balance
I agree
things
with
out.
you, Fahim Saab. Let me take Dr. Seljuk into this conversation. Dr. Seljuk, how do you see the relationship between Egypt and Turkey that have not remained very pleasant for last some time? But I believe recently there have been some efforts made from the Turkish side to see if the ice can be broken between the two.
Absolutely, this relationship is very significant for Turkey because before the Sisi coup, and Turkey has like an incredible relation with Egypt, and Turkish companies are doing very much well in Egypt, and most of the businessmen invested Egypt a lot. But what happened after Sisi coup, and Sisi did lots of the human rights crimes, and Sisi coup also did lots of problems in Egypt, and Turkish investors couldn't make well during this process. And also, what Turkey's position during that period, as we remember, the Middle East experienced incredible developments after the Arab Spring, and Egypt is one of the center of that. And Turkey was very much hope for Middle Eastern and Islamic countries to be more democratic, and Turkey supported all process. But after coup, Egypt deliberately targeted Turkey, and Turkey also tried to protect the human rights in Egypt. And this process increased the bilateral relation. But what happened? Turkey also and Egypt also tried to engage more, because when they clashed, it affects everywhere. For instance, if you look at the Mediterranean politics, and as you know, there is an incredible oil reserve in Eastern Mediterranean area, specifically in Cyprus. And Egypt tried to support the Greek Cyprus, and they want to ban Turkish interest there. And what Turkey did also, Turkey also tried to protect all oppositions of Egypt. And this process is like a, this process uh, influence both sides negatively. But recently, when Turkey started to this negotiation process, which started in Iraq, Baghdad Forum, and after that they met in GCC area as well, so bilateral relations increased. And Turkey also, Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu, gave a message for Egypt as well, try to increase the diplomatic relations. So I think it will going better if you compare the, let's say, the after the coup period. But what Turkey tries to do, United Arab Emirates, for instance, also many newspapers and journalists claim that United Arab Emirates is also one of the partner of the coup plotters in Turkey, the FETÖ guys, and they had a relations with this group as well. But what Turkey trying to do right now, trying to increase diplomatic relations in any country. If you look at the Armenia, and just last year, when the conflict started between Armenia and Azerbaijan, Turkey openly supported Azerbaijan, and Turkish İHA and SİHAs, the drones, are the game changer in this conflict. But what Turkey did, again started the diplomatic relations with Armenia. So the Turkish position is always clear, always open to any diplomatic relations, doesn't matter which country. But when these countries attack the Turkish domestic politics and Turkish interests and security, they will get their answer. So recently, Egypt and Turkey is trying to increase their bilateral relations, and Turkey is very much positive this period. And Turkey doesn't have any energy more to this conflict, because if you look at the Turkish borderland, Iraq and Syria is right now in the, we can say, the civil war, and Turkey has more than 5 million refugees. And Turkey wants to mediate all problems in Middle East right now and the other countries. That's why main purpose of Turkey is the peace and good relations. That's why if Egypt comes to that point, the relations would be better.
Dr. Seljuk, you just very importantly pointed out almost all the neighboring countries as well as the active conflicts that I had on my list that Turkey is facing at the moment. Tell me this diplomatic isolation or the diplomatic problems that Turkey has been facing for all the reasons that you very nicely illustrated, as well as coupled with the recent economic problem that have got something to do with the currency crisis, something with COVID, and have a factor of FATF as well. How does it affect the position of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in the domestic politics? Because he's a very important politician in the international arena, and he's looked at with a lot of admiration in this part of the world. So my viewers would like to understand, how does his position look in the local politics given all these problems that Turkey is facing at the moment?
You indeed very good summarize the problems of Turkey, because Turkey experienced isolation politics from the United States, and which started when Turkey tried to protect its borderland, when Turkey tried to secularize her country, and when we look at the Iraq and Syria, the borderland area, and the PKK terrorist group, and this group also attacked Turkey. But when you see the table, and Turkey is the member of NATO, but PKK is the partner of, we can say, the branch of the PKK, YPG, is a partner of the United States in Syria. So Turkey is always trying to protect its rights and security. And as you asked in the beginning, the F-16 issue, and how F-16 issue started, when Turkey started to buy some weapons from Russia. But Turkey has to buy these weapons to protect its borderland. And these problems cause lots of issues. And overt, not only Turkey, but also Pakistan as well, experienced these problems with the United States when Trump was president. And the policy and diplomatic policy, like a foreign policy of Trump, was like a Twitter policy. At the end, Twitter banned Trump as well. That's quite interesting. And what Trump was trying to do is like giving a message from Twitter and threatening Turkey, trying to isolate Turkey. But at the end of the picture, Turkey protected its rights, and as you write, it also has an other side which also influences the local politics as well. Because during these all international problems, because Turkey is not only protecting its rights, Turkey is always protecting the Muslim rights in Western countries who are under the Islamophobic attacks. Turkey is always protecting the Palestinian rights, which is also a very significant problem in the world. Turkey is always also protecting and saying that the rights of the other countries, not only 5 countries in the United Nations, and President Erdogan says that world is bigger than 5, which is very much clear. And Muslim countries and Muslim population in the world, and second biggest population in the world, they haven't any right in UN. That's the problem. And Erdogan is always raising this issue. And this discourse. Yes.
Dr. Sharukh, thank you very much for being so insightful. I have to take a quick comment from Mr. Fahim Sardar. Fahim Sahab, you have any expectations from the future as the economy of Turkey is currently in shambles? Do you expect anything to happen pretty soon?
Well, to be honest, I don't think it's in shambles. I think it's in a bit of a wobbly situation, which they will recover from this situation, provided 2-3 things are done. Firstly, interest rates will have to be raised a little bit to stabilize the economy. Number 2, they have to increase their ability to just keep the liquidity in the country flowing. That includes the loan mechanisms and the repayment systems, which has come under pressure. Finally, I think one thing which is very important, and I'm sure the Turkish government is looking at it, is their industry. Turkey does have a strong industrial base, which it's looking towards to sort of build the economy back up. I mean, I won't get into services right now, but what we see is that there was an import exposure, what I call it. and they've
Thank you
sort
very
of been
much.
exposed.
Thank you very much,
sort of-
Fahim Saab. We are running out of time. Thank you very much for your valuable contribution to the program. Ladies and gentlemen, both of my guests have very wisely pointed out the problems that Turkey have at the moment. In this part of the world, there is a lot of admiration for the leadership of Turkey because of Turkey's stand on issues like Kashmir and Israel. Kashmir and Israel are the issues where many countries have shied away from giving straightforward statements. Turkey has never shied away from that. And the way the Turkey's leadership is dealing with the crisis, we expect great things to happen with Turkey in near future, as Fahim Sardar Saab said, with the right focus in the fiscal policy, we expect great results to come from Turkey. We'll join you next week with another program. And until then, Allah Hafiz.